Welcome to part 3 of Pit Yakka Origins. The last part ended with the Pit Yakkas discussing the end of the Lilleshall programme. We pick it up with Stuart describing his time with England schoolboys. Enjoy.
So then you finished there. You're 16-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, during that time there, I was lucky enough to, there was England schoolboys, which was obviously the big thing at the time. It was the under-15s, England schoolboys. Although I was at Lilleshall already, you had a trial for that. It was ran by different coaches, so it wasn't Keith Blunt. It was Steve. I met up with him recently. He's just won an award for outstanding contribution to youth football. Steve Avery.
Right.
Steve Avery, and I was working at Sunderland at the time, and we went down to Wolves' ground for a youth development phase get together, and he won this award, and I had a bit crack with him, and I said, "You were the manager of my England under-15 team," and he knew us, he recognised us. But when we did the trials, out of the 16 Lilleshall lads, there was 4 of us missed out. So I remember coming back from school when we went to a normal school at Idsall. And I remember coming back and everyone was waiting and everyone's name was on an envelope and everyone grabbed the letter and ran off. And I remember picking the letter up and it was like, unfortunately, you haven't been selected for the final squad of 16 for the England schoolboys. There was me, Andy Wright, who I work with now, Matthew Wicks and Peter Smith were the only 4 that didn't get in. And we were absolutely devastated. Like, I was crying. I went in my room and I cried my eyes out. You know, it was 12 lads out of the 16 that got in and 4 missed out. And we were devastated. Anyway, you know, I dusted myself down, got on with it as normal. And then a couple of weeks later, a letter came through and it was from, obviously, the FA. And it said that Andy O'Sullivan, who'd been selected in my position as a right winger, had been sent off playing for his county. And he wasn't eligible for the first 3 games. So they drafted me in for the first 3 games. So in a way, you know, it was a little bit of luck that I got in there, but, you know, great opportunity. We played, I got a cap. I'll never forget, the first game was live on Sky Sports.
I remember watching.
And it was at Coventry's ground against Wales. And we wore a white strip and it was a muddy night. And I came on the pitch and I remember the commentator saying it was late in the game. And the commentator said, and this is Stuart Brightwell. This is all the left back needs. He's the county 100-metre champion. This is all the left back needs at this point. Yeah. And I remember coming on the pitch, getting into position. The keeper kicked the ball and he blew the whistle. 7 seconds. I was on the pitch for 7 seconds. But I got a cap out of it. I got a cap. Then the next game was Northern Ireland at Roker Park, which I was a bit disappointed. They knew I was from that neck of the woods. Yeah. I had loads of family come up to watch the game and I didn't get on. I was an unused substitute, which I found a little bit, you know, I thought they could have done us a little bit of a, you know, favour and give us 20 minutes even. And then the last game was Switzerland at Wembley, which was, again, it was the old Wembley, the original Wembley, and that was live on ITV. And I got about 20 minutes in that game, which was, you know, that they live with you forever, them memories, being in the dressing rooms at Wembley and walking up the tunnel, which was the famous walk when it levels out and you see it. Yeah. You know, I'll never forget that. That was amazing. But that kind of spurred me on. I dropped out they had about another 5 games. They played in the Munich Stadium in Germany and they went to Holland and I missed out on that. So that was disappointing. But that gave me a bit of fire in my belly to make sure that didn't happen again. So when the trials came the next year for the England under 16s, it was run by Keith Blunt, who was the Lilleshall coach, and most of us got in. And, you know, he worked with us on a daily basis. You know, it wasn't just a school environment, it was what he sees. So that took me, again, all over the country, all over the world, really, didn't it? You know, Portugal and stuff like that. So being involved with England under 16s, you know, was amazing. And then that led me on to 17s and then under 18s. And the England under 18 stuff was amazing. People like Rio Ferdinand was in our team, Michael Owen. So I've got the same caps as them, you know. Yeah. And that kind of, you know, was that's when I thought, you know, I'm getting. I remember we played in a European Championship semi or quarter final. We played France, and Thierry Henry played, and he got the winning goal. He scored a penalty. Oh, yeah. So he knocked us out, and he played for them. He was special, even then at France under 18s.
Didn't you play against Pirlo?
I did. That was for Man United. Oh, we went to a tournament in Italy with Man United, and I've still got you get that the book from the whole tournament, and the pictures there. He's there for Juve, and it's got Andrea Pirlo. I mean, I remember he was in the tournament.
Fantastic.
But yeah,
But by the time you're playing for the 17s, 18s, you're at Man.
Yeah, so
sure, you're at Man United now.
yeah, so I've done my 2-year schoolboys at Man United, and now it's scholarship stage. You're about to leave Lilleshall, and it's what's going to be next in terms of scholarship. Again, I kind of always had my heart set on Man United.
Yeah.
I think what Man United did was anyone who was at Lilleshall, they all offered them the same contract, which was a pro contract on your 17th birthday.
Yeah.
So there was me, John Curtis, Elliot Dickman, Mark Wilson. We all got, and Matthew Wicks came as well. So there was 5 of us who came from Lilleshall, were all offered pros on our 17th birthday. But before that, obviously there was quite a bit of interest for clubs. I know Newcastle. We went up to Newcastle, didn't we?
We went up there, and I was going up the staircase. I can't remember if it was a staircase or an elevator. I can't remember. Anyway, Sir John Hall put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Mr. Brightwell." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Look," he said, "whatever you do," he said, "your boy has to come here." He said, "We need all the North East talent, so your boy needs to come here." And I said, "Yeah, that's okay, Mr. Hall, you know."
Yeah.
Anyway, we met Kevin Keegan and Terry McDermott, and to say they made you feel at home when we went in, before I went in to see Kevin, Terry McDermott's there with the racing on, and that's all he wanted to do with the racing, you know. And he's crapping onto me. He's got the paper. He's crapping onto me about the horses and everything. And anyway, I went in to see Kevin, and he offered Stuart 5 years. That was 2 years because he's 14. So 2 years schoolboy, 2 years YTS, and a year's pro, which was, you know, was fantastic. Stuart had his heart set on Man United. So,
and do you think things pan out differently if it isn't Man United? You know,
well, from my perspective, when he went to Man United, I thought great because he's away from home.
Yeah.
There'll be no distractions.
Yeah.
How wrong I was.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas if he'd gone to Newcastle, I could have kept an eye on things. As it was down in Salford, I wasn't in control of things.
No.
You know, I was talking to my dad on the way down, and in that era when I went to Man United, there was no support whatsoever. If you were mentally tough enough to deal with being a scholar or a pro at Man United at that age and deal with what comes with it, that's your problem.
Yeah.
There was no support. There was no check-in. Now all the clubs have player care. They have psychologists. They have people you can just reach out to. There was none of that. Literally, and obviously my dad's 2.5 hours away back home with a job. You've got your own stuff going on. I was literally on my own with no support. I needed somebody to drag a hold of me and go, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
You know, because looking back in hindsight, I was at the biggest club in the world, at my dream club, doing absolutely nothing that I should have been doing to try and get into that first team.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I was doing the complete opposite.
Yeah.
You couldn't handle the money.
No, I couldn't. I mean, looking back in hindsight, I was on £250 a week as a first-year pro with nothing to pay for. And I was on £350 a week in my second year with nothing to pay for.
Yeah.
And I should, you know, that was what, 25 years ago.
I remember at the time in your second year pro when you got the 350, I remember that was more than I was getting working 12-hour shifts at the factory.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you were just a lad playing football every day. So it was decent money at the time when you transfer it into sort of wages around the northeast at that time.
350 quid, that's nearly 24 years.
It was good money. But looking back in hindsight as well, I think the local lads who were living at home just had that benefit of the guidance.
Yeah.
You know, knowing what you're doing. I had a landlady who I only ever seen when there was food put on the table.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was no, I could go out at 8, 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't ask questions, where you going, what you doing. Do you know?
At the time and I don't know, but at the time you probably thought, oh, well, my dad's not here, so I can do what I want. Whereas if you'd been at home, you knew you'd be able to.
Yeah, 100%.
Because you were never a one for discipline.
No.
You never liked discipline.
No.
You got it. No, seriously.
Yeah.
But you didn't like it. You know. So.
But yeah.
So you turned the Newcastle thing down, then you just.
Yeah.
How did that go then? How did that? So did you walk away that day and then go back with a no later, or what, how did that?
In all honesty, I can't remember something. But he had his heart set on Man United, and as he said earlier, you know, he went all over the place on trial and everything, and got offered. I mean, Ipswich would have rolled the red carpet out for him.
Yeah,
they really would. And even after that when I used to speak to the scout, whose name escapes me now. Larry Phillips.
Larry Phillips. Yeah.
Larry Phillips. Even years later, Larry used to say, "Sonny, I just wish your son signed for us," because that would have been a feather in Larry's cap.
Yeah.
But Man United was where he wanted to go, and that was it.
Leeds came in late, didn't they?
Leeds came in late, and the guy, I was in the house and the phone rang, and this guy had been tracking Stuart for some time, spoke to me a few times, and this particular time, he rang me and he said, "Mr. Brightwell." I said, "Yeah." He said, "It's so-and-so, I can't remember his name." He said, "Look, let's cards on the table." He said, "Just what do you want for your son?" I said, "Pardon?" He said, "What do you want for your son, money-wise? What do you want?" I said, "I'll tell you what to do." I said, "My son's not a piece of meat." I said, "Money doesn't come into it." And I said, "Do me a favour. When we put the phone down, never ring me again."
Aye.
Right? Now, moving forward and knowing what career Stuart had in terms of didn't make money, I should have turned around and said at the time, "Yeah, but what have you got to offer? What have you got to,
You could have at least getting that 40 quid back for them.
Absolutely. But you know what I mean? Because I wasn't like that.
Yeah.
I
Gaza, what did he did when it was Venomals or something? Someone rang him about the Tottenham thing, and he was like,
A sunbed for my
ended up getting
sister.
a sunbed and a washing machine.
yeah. By the way, before you go, can my sister? She's shouting in the background. Can she have a sunbed?
Aye. That's what you needed to do.
But you know something? In all seriousness, I was never like that, and I'm still not like that. Money doesn't motivate me. But what I should have said was, "Well, yeah, what have you got?" And put it in the bank.
Yeah.
At least you when you packed up, you come away with something. But
that's what people do now, don't they? Look after themselves.
well,
And,
of course they do.
In the modern game, you need a season in the Premier League, and you're set, aren't you? These days,
but then all of a sudden, in this day and age, somebody would have used that, say, 100 grand from Leeds, go back to Fergie. Leeds are going to give him 100 grand.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we'll give him 200.
Well, actually, Fergie, we were talking about this earlier on. Fergie rang me at home and said, he'd rang me a few times just as a courtesy thing. But he rang me this time and said, "Mr. Brightwell," he says, "I'm a little bit concerned." He said, "But what's this about your son?" I think it was Ipswich. He says, "What's this about your son going to Ipswich?" I said, "He's been on trial at Ipswich." I said, he's never decided that he's going to sign for Ipswich." I said, Man United is his club. "Oh, well," he said, as long as that's the case," he says, "because I've heard rumours that he's going to sign for Ipswich."
Yeah.
And I said, no, that's not correct.
Yeah. And this is Alex Ferguson.
This is Alex Ferguson, yeah.
Fantastic. So then in those years, those years at Man United, who's in your sort of years? Who were you around at that time?
Yeah, so obviously I went there and I went with a big reputation, obviously come from Lilleshall, straight into the B team, what they had at A and B team. But the A and B team were playing in leagues against men. So I would probably been 16-year-old still, and I was playing against Marine reserves who was fully grown men with beards and everything, who were wanting to kick you because you were a Man United youth team player. But looking back in hindsight, it's probably what we needed. It'd probably help you. I need to move the ball a little bit quicker because I don't want him smashing me. And so it probably had its benefits. But then when I kind of went, I started, on an upward trajectory. But then, off the field things turn up, your mind goes different places. And I just kind of found myself like slipping down a little bit in terms of sign me pro, my 17th birthday. But then obviously, again, you don't look at them things at the time, but you had Beckham, Giggs, Scholes, the Neville brothers, they had just broke into the first team, and they ended up being world-class superstars. Yeah, probably three year older. So it was always going to be tough for me to, I played on the right, Beckham was a right winger.
Yeah.
So, looking back in hindsight, I probably should have went elsewhere.
Yeah. But at that age, you're not looking forward that far, are you, and going, am I getting in ahead of him? Am I getting... You're not...
I think kids do now.
Yeah.
I think kids at 16 and 17 at the right level, or who think they're at the right level, look and go, well, can I get a chance in the first team?
But are they getting guidance as well? I think that's the key here, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
Get the guidance and the right people around them and all that type of stuff.
I think the other thing was I wasn't getting any feedback from the club as to your progress or not progress. I was not getting any feedback at all. So I didn't know your situation, so I couldn't react to it until it was basically too late.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, like, things like doing extra sessions, extra gym sessions or double sessions. There was a handful of the lads were like, "Oh, I'm staying back. I'm going in the gym," or Me and a lad called David Healy. Obviously, David went on to be Northern Ireland's record top goal scorer ever. Me and him were just straight to the bookies, you know, literally couldn't wait to get in for that first race at 12:20, bang. And we'll be in there all day.
That's your day over 12:20.
And that became a problem for you.
Yeah, it became a little bit of an obsession. Probably didn't help with the crowd that I was in. Somebody like him, an Irish lad who loved to gamble himself, but he could walk away. He could lose 20 quid and go, right, that's me. Where if I lost that, I was chasing that.
Yeah.
I needed to get that back to the point where I would walk with my money gone.
Yeah.
My weekly wages gone in that day because I was chasing me money, which was really difficult. But then it wasn't just the gambling. The gambling was bad. It was the going out on the drink. Again, the culture I was with, the group I was with were lads that were wanting to go out. I remember once I went out with Grant Brebner, Phil Mulrine, Andy Duncan, and we went to Chinatown where they had the strippers and stuff. And I remember being in this strip club with the lads. And Phil Mulrine said to us, I had a pint of Heineken. And he went, I'll give you 15 quid if you down that pint of Heineken. All right, okay. So I stood up amongst all the lads, necked this pint of Heineken. 15 quid, he put it in I had a checky shirt on, he put it in my shirt pocket. And he went, excuse me, waiters, can we have another pint? He went, I'll double it if you do this one. So literally, pint comes over, next this pint of Heineken. So I've done 2 pints within like 2 minutes. He pulled the 15 quid out of my pocket. He went, you daft C-U-N-T. Do you think I would do that? So I downed 2 pints of Heineken and for nothing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I remember that night, got home, obviously steaming drunk, and I was living with Viv up at Earlham and the Heights. And I went to bed and I woke in the morning and I was supposed to be training with
Viv being your landlady, by the way.
Yeah. And I remember waking up stinking hangover, like really bad. And I'll never forget it. I was brushing my teeth in the sink and she shouted up, Stu. I went, yeah. She went, Jimmy Ryan's just been on the phone. You're not to go into training this morning. But as she said that, I was like, she went, you've got to meet at Old Trafford because you're travelling with the reserves to Everton.
No.
And I was like, oh my God. So I had a few hours to try and pull myself together. We had a pre-match meal at Old Trafford. I probably was still stinging a drink. And I remember we travelled on the bus to Goodison Park and I was named on the bench. And I remember walking down the tunnel to do the warm-up and I was still feeling ropey. And I was walking out the tunnel with Duncan Ferguson. Yeah. I was looking at him. Obviously, he was a bit of a superstar then, but he was playing in the resi to get fit. And I remember walking down going, what are you doing? You've just been out on the lash all night and you're probably stinking a drink. Now I'm walking out onto the same pitch to try and play against Duncan Ferguson. And I didn't get on in that game, but that was a bit of a reality check with myself. I thought, what are you doing? But again, I had no one around us to go, Stu, come on, like, you know, you're playing for Man United. You can't be doing that.
Yeah.
But even if that was just on a training basis, how was I supposed to perform against other Man United players hungover?
Yeah.
Just doesn't, it didn't happen.
Well,
And that's how it became, but that was the rut I was in. And I found it difficult to get out of, you know. And then, sure enough, it catches up with you, doesn't it?
It definitely does catch up with you. And there are other stories, aren't there, around the whole, you weren't allowed to take girls back to the...
No, yeah. So that was, again, that probably got me off on the wrong foot. I'd gone in the July as a scholar. And I reckon this was 3 months later. And we decided as a group of lads, young first years, should we go out for a bit of food and a couple of pints. And I remember 2 girls worked in this. There was a shop called the Sock Shop in the Arndale Centre in Manchester. And whenever we used to go shopping, we used to have a little bit of a, you know, eye contact and a little bit of a flirt and that with them and that. And this night we've gone out into Manchester. We've gone to a couple of bars. And we weren't steaming. It was literally a couple of pints and some food. We've bumped into them, and obviously we were a little bit jovial. And we've asked these girls to come back to the digs. The 2 girls who worked in the sock shop, so they've said yeah. But it was a little bit, oh, you're not allowed them back, are you? And we're like, oh, we are, man, but she'll not know it's late. So we goes in, and where we lived in the digs, I actually took our Charlie back. I'll never forget the address, 9 Priory Avenue. And when me and Charlie went to do a tour of Old Trafford, I took him to the digs and I showed him. And we got the girls back to the digs. Nothing happened. They were like, nah, like they wouldn't put out if you like and all that. So got to the point where this is 6 o'clock in the morning. Like, I'm like, lads, how just get them a taxi home and we'll get a couple of hours kit before we go to training. So we gets them picked up by a taxi. Boom, they've gone. 6 o'clock. We go to bed for a couple of hours, wake up again. Who goes into train the next day on 2 hours sleep? Do you know what I mean? At Man United. So we go in, and at the time, my job as a scholar was to do the big Gatorade tubs for the first team and reserves. It was like big orange, so I had to fill them, put enough orange in, and then put the water in and make sure the tubs were full. But my job to do that, I had to walk past Fergie's office on the left, down a corridor, through into the Brian Kidd and Jimmy Ryan and Eric Harrison. Had to literally walk past them. They were chatting like this. We would walk past them into the bathroom, and that's where I had to do my job by filling the water up. And I remember coming back out, 2 big tubs of Gatorade, and I walked past his office, and I just heard his door go, and I just heard, Brightwell, in my office. Oh my God. Honestly, my heart just stopped. Put the drinks tubs down, turned around, and he was just there, big red nose, fuming, get in here. So I went in, and I think Mark Wilson might have been sat with us at the time, and he went, right, Brenda's been on the phone. You've had girls back to the digs. Your contracts are getting ripped up. Your parents have been notified. You're no longer part of this club. Get out. And that was it. It was like literally 30 seconds. You've had girls back. Your contracts are being ripped up. You're no longer part of this club. Get out. So me and Mark walked out, and Fordy and Gav Naylor had already been in. So they were at the bottom of the stairs, and we're like, so we're walking back to the digs, and we're like, lads, we need to say we haven't had them back. We haven't had them back. We've got to stick to. We're panicking now. We're panicking. You know, me and Mark Wilson were ready to sign pros on our 17th birthday. We've been involved with England, beating Lilleshall. So we're like, lads, listen, whatever happens, we've not had girls back to the digs. Right, okay. So it goes back to the digs. He was working in Salford at the time. I swear he was in that 9 Priory Avenue running up the stairs within about 10 minutes, right? So I'm like shaking. What's going on? What's going on? Like, Dad, she said we've had girls back. We haven't. So I'll let you take over from here.
Well, the 4 of them were sat there, and I was, I'm not proud of the fact, but I was literally going ballistic.
Yeah, which is not like you at all, really.
Absolutely, absolutely. And they finally convinced me that, although there was always an element of doubt, but they finally convinced me that they hadn't had the girls back. So I went down and I had words with, if she'd informed the police what I actually said to her, I would have probably got looked up.
Right.
But please didn't. Anyway, cut a long story short, Dave Bushell rang me and sort of said what had happened. And I said, no, Dave, I said, I've spoke to the lads. I said, they've all assured me that they didn't have girls back. He said, right, he says, I'll get back to you then.
And then Keith Blunt rang you, didn't he? Because England, I'd been picked for that England under-17 squad, and they must have notified the FA straight away.
Yeah.
So Keith Blunt rang me dad and said, Sonny, listen, what's going on? Like, I've been heard he's been sacked. He's got to be registered with the club to be able to be part of this squad. So I need to know what's happening. And I remember you being on the phone. I was petrified. And I remember you saying, Keith, I can assure you, it's all a mistake. He hasn't had girls back. Leave it with me. Leave it with me. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God. And I remember it was the green dialy phone. I remember you put the phone down and you went like that. And as soon as you took your hand off the phone rang. Hello. And I remember, hi, Sonny, it's Dave Bushell. Hi, Dave, you okay? And I remember he just turned like that round to me and he just looked at us and he just went. And I knew. And Dave, didn't he? Dave said, yeah, we've rang the taxi company and they've confirmed they picked 2 young ladies up at 6 o'clock this morning. And he just put the phone on. He went, you've just sat and let me lie to the England manager. And oh my word.
Yeah, well, that was such a letdown.
Mm-hmm.
But
it was just panic, wasn't it? You're young and you don't know what's going on.
You reinstated though, didn't you?
Yeah, so what happened was Steve Bruce and Brian McClare were our PFA representatives. So they were looking out for us rather than the club.
Yeah.
You know, they were representing us. So they must have went and had a chat with Fergie and said, listen, we need to have a meeting. You know, we need the guys back kind of thing, blah, blah. So there was a meeting arranged at Old Trafford, wasn't there?
It was, yeah.
For parents, which obviously you went to, didn't you?
I did, yeah. And Fergie was obviously chairing the meeting and all the other parents were sat around the table, but I was on my own. And he went round, he sort of set the stall out and said what was what. And then he said to them, as we went round the table, have anybody got anything to add to that or anything to say? No. everyone know, "Yeah, Mr. Brightwell, yes." I said, "Yes, I've got something to say." He said, "Oh, well, what's that then?" I says, "Can you remember the number of times you rang me at home and basically sort of said, 'Stuart, okay, he's not going to this club, he's not going to that club, he's coming to Man United.'" "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And I said, "The number of times you've rang me at home," and I said, "He signs for your club, he loves the club, it's all he ever wanted to do." And I said, "He signs for your club and he stepped out of line once, but by this time the decibels is increasing."
Yeah.
I said, "He stepped out of line once," and I said, "You sack him." I said, "Well, it's not on." Anyway, that was it. The meeting came to a close, and I was walking down the corridor, and he put his hand on my shoulder, and he went, "Mr. Brightwell," he says, "I was only trying to frighten the boys." And I shrugged him. I shrugged his arm off me, and I said, "Oh, you've done that all right." And I knew at that point in time, although he'd been reinstated,
Yeah.
I knew that that was it.
Cards were marked.
Oh, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. And how long were you around?
That was after 3 months, so I ended up still signing me pro on my 17th birthday, but I had to go back and apologise to Brenda, the landlady, but I wanted out. Like, I couldn't look her in the face after, doing that. Although it was not, I don't think she needed to do that. We hadn't messed the house up, we hadn't done anything wrong. It was just, I remember one of your conversations with Fergie, actually, you said to him, "I'm not condoning for 1 minute what he's done, I am a disciplinarian and he knows that, and I'm not condoning what he's done." But I think you said to him, "But are you trying to tell me these young Man United players have never had girls back the digs, Beckham, Giggs, Scholes?" And I think you said to him, "Come on, man."
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I moved digs. I moved to Viv's, which was Earlham of the Heights. But that digs was full of gamblers and drinkers, which was a bad mix for me, where I was at that current time. Finished me 2 year. I remember going in to see Fergie, and he just said, "Listen, I'm going to be honest with you now." He said, like, "I don't see you in the next couple of years getting in ahead of Beckham and Giggs and Scholes and them." And he said, "So for that reason, I need to be looking at, you're 18-year-old now. I need to be looking at the next year." He says, "No, I don't see you getting in there." He said, "So for that reason, I'm gonna let you go on a free transfer." And at the time, it was strange. At the time, I was like, yeah, no bother.
Yeah.
And it probably took a lot of years for us to sit back and go, that should have hurt.
Yeah.
That should have hurt, but it was just kind of, all right, yeah, no.
Because of the rut you're getting in, and
Possibly it might have been a bit of a cry for help, as if to say, well, I can get out of this now.
Yeah.
So I remember Jimmy Ryan coming in, because I was obviously due to go into the reserves. So Jim was like, "Listen, what do you want to do?" He said, "Listen, Cambridge are keen to take you on trial." They'd already had Tommy Smith and Neil Mustoe had gone on trial. So I said, "Yeah, I'll go to Cambridge." So he said, "Right, I'll set it up." So I had a 2-week trial at Cambridge. I went down for a week, really enjoyed it. Tommy Smith and Neil Mustoe were actually involved in the first team squad on that weekend. And I remember them sitting down and saying, "Listen, nothing on for you this weekend. You can go home, but want you to come back on Monday." He said, "But if you look at Tommy and Muzzy, they're both involved in the first team squad. We want to see that from you, in the next 6 to 12 months. That's that opportunity." So I remember coming home for that weekend, and I remember going back on the Sunday night, and I'm just driving back down to Cambridge, driving along, and I don't know why, but the left indicator came on. I came off me turn off to come to Manchester, and I literally went back to my digs at Manchester, walked into train on the Monday morning, and Jimmy Ryan went, "What you doing?" I went, says, "I need to go home." He went, "Really?" I went, "Yeah, Jim." I says, "I've been away from home since I'm 14. I says, I just need to get back home." I says, can you ring the clubs back home and see if anybody will have us back home?"
Yeah.
I was desperate. I couldn't. Listen, I'm in Manchester now. I'm 2.5 hours away from home on my own. I couldn't have moved down to London on my own, or Cambridge, another 2-3 hours down the road.
Yeah.
I was like, I just need to go back home. Right, okay, leave it with us. Anyway, he came back to us. He said, Hartlepool have been in touch. He said, a lad called Brian Honor wants you to go. So obviously I knew Brian, so I said, right, that's great. So I remember coming home. I remember playing for a game for Hartlepool reserves, and Brian pulled us off the game. He went, "What are you doing here?" He went, "What are you doing here?" He went, "Don't get me wrong, we're lucky." He said, "But Stu, man, you shouldn't be anywhere near here." I went, "Brian, I just need a club. I need to get back home. I need a club." He went, "Right." So I remember he went in to see Mick Tate. Mick Tate was the manager, and he just said, "Tatey, just sign him." He says, "I know you haven't seen him, but you need to sign him." He said, "He's levels above." Right, Tatey went, "Right." So I remember having a conversation with Mick Tate, and Mick Tate said, "Listen, Stu, I've been told to sign you." He said, "But I've never seen you." He said, and I don't know if you're aware, he says, but we're not a club with a lot of money. He said, and all I can offer you at the moment, because I haven't seen you, is a 1 year contract on £90 a week.
£90 a week. And they were League Two at the time.
And they were a professional club.
Yeah.
And I went, deal. I just wanted that opportunity to be at a professional club again, you know, and I took the opportunity. And
could have been your agent. I could have gotten 10% of 90 quid.
honestly, frightening. So I'm playing it.
Madness, isn't it? I mean, and that's, so what year is that then?
This was 98, 99. Yeah. So I'm playing in league football, and I started out of the 30 odd games. I started 26 and came off the bench for the other times. But the again, it's all about the luck we were talking about, when you need a little bit of luck. Just towards the end of the season, we had a little bit of a tough season. We hovered just above relegation most of the season. We ended up staying up, but just before the end of the season, Mick Tate got the sack, and Paul Baker took over interim manager. But Bakes had 2 games, and then they brought Chris Turner in. And Chris Turner came in with his own staff. And I'll never forget this game. We played Torquay away, and I remember sitting down with him on the Friday night in the hotel, and he sat down and he just said, "Listen, I'm looking at next year." He said, I know your background. I know you've been involved with Little Shaw in England and been to Man United. He says, you've obviously got a good pedigree. He said, and what I've seen from your in training and stuff, he says, if you just keep doing what you're doing, he says, I'm penciling you in as my right winger for next year. And I was like, yes, like happy days, you know, I'm going to get another contract. And then we played Brentford away, and we played Brentford at home, and the Brentford home game, we all travelled to Alton Towers.
That's right.
We went camping.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. Camp sticks.
Can you remember?
Yeah.
We went camping.
Yeah, with the glow sticks up.
Aye,
Yeah.
and Kate, I was with Kate at the time. We travelled with you.
Yeah.
That was my last ever game for Hartlepool. Now, in that game, I got brought off at half time. Brentford had Herman O'Riderson, who went on to have a good career. They had a left back, a black lad who went on to play real higher level. He played it, and the game was literally like this. The ball was in the air the whole time. Yeah. And I got brought off at half time, and he brought Paul Baker on for us. And I'll never forget, he sat there and he went, "Stu, I'm going to make a change. You're going to come off. Baker's coming on." He went, "But don't worry, son." He says, "It's probably not the game for you." He said, "But I'm telling you now, if you just keep doing what you're doing, you'll be all right at this football club." Never ever played for them again. I went in to see him at the end of the season, and he just said, I was so surprised. Lads were going in who were the same age as me, but hadn't been nowhere near the first team, were getting like 6-month contracts or year contracts. And I'm like happy days. There's a 2 or 3 year coming my way here. You know, I was still only 19. I played in the first team all season. And he went, "I'm going to let you go." And I was like, wow. I just walked out I didn't even have any emotion. I walked out in just sheer like disbelief. I didn't know what was going on. I was like, that can't be right. But again, day and age, I should have had an agent going, no, come on. You know what I mean? But again, I was on my own, walked out, never, until obviously 2007 when I went to America, never to play professional football again, you know? Yeah. So that was where I was at a crossroads in my life, which was like, you know, within 2 years, I went from playing for England under-18s with Rio Ferdinand to not having a club. You know, that was tough.
And what did you do in that interim period there then before you went out to the States?
So I decided to get a job. I got a job at TRW at Horton, 12-hour shifts, 4 on 4 off, 2 days.
A culture shock.
2 nights, horrendous. And I signed for Tony Lee at Bishops. And it was one of them where I was playing for Bishops. I was on good money, you know, but I was doing really well. You know, clubs like Bolton were watching us. And I remember the game that they came to watch us. I had an absolute worldie of a game. And I remember after the game, Tony went, I'll be honest, he went, "I think the last I'll ever see you." And nothing transpired from it. Just them little bits of luck that you need. You know, I could have came out, gone into Bishops, and then within 6 months of Bishops, been back at Bolton in a pro club. That didn't transpire. And then I just got into the way of semi-pro working, which I did. You know, obviously Bishops, then I went to Durham City with Brian Honor, which was brilliant. We had a, you know, real good team there. We got the Vars semi-final and played with Dickie Ord and Gary Bennett, Martin Gray. So that was a good period of me semi-pro career, you know. And then various jobs, worked at Empower, was a postman and stuff like that. And that was it. And then in 2007, a good friend of mine, David Wren, was doing some coaching in America. And he came back one summer and he went, "Stu," there's a new franchise setting up in America called the Carolina Railhawks. I've getting through the first batch of trials. And he was all right.
He was all right,
He was a
yeah.
decent, local player. He said, but I've put your name forward. He says, I think you should come over and trial. And he says, I think you'll get in, no bother. He said, if it doesn't, I've got I work for a company now called Triangle United. I'll give you a job coaching. And at the time, I was 27. Things were just plodding along as normal, working and semi-pro football. And I thought, why not? Why not? So I decided to take that leap. I remember being on the plane, traveling over, thinking, what are you doing? It was just like, it was a bit surreal. I was like, you shouldn't be doing this kind of thing, just, But I ended up going, and I think I had 2 weeks of, and the 2 weeks just turned out to going out every night. And, you're in a new country, you're in a new place.
Made from
Back home, and I was living with him at the time, him and his wife, and it was just like every night, I was doing some bits of footy with his mates and that on the night, and then they were going to like a sports bar and they were having wings and pints. So that 2 weeks of pre-season turned into just 2 weeks of going out and drinking, really. But I turned up on the day. There was the coach was called Scotty Schweitzer, great bloke, to be fair to him. And there was 80 of us at this. It was an open trial. There was 80 people. By this time, I'm used to trials anyway, so there was 80 people from all over the world. There was Dutch, there was Africans, there was Asians, everywhere, honestly, everywhere. And the first batch of trials, like, I'm not even fit, or I'm probably not even half fit, and like they can't get near us, and I'm like, surely there's got to be. So it got whittled down quickly. Rennie got the bullet. He didn't get through the next batch of trials, and then it was literally down to, there was probably about 8 of us left of the original 80, and we joining in with the first team squad. So what they do over there, they work on a draft basis, and because they were a new franchise, they got the first number 1 draft pick from the college program, and they drafted a lad called Shalar Abalaji, a big physical specimen, but they give him the good contract because he's number 1 draft pick. So I think his contract was $3,000 a month. With free living arrangements and stuff. So free digs, $3,000 a month. So he gets the big contract. And then there was a couple of Nigerians, Philip Kutsu, he got the similar deal, $3,000 a month. Then there's lads who have leaving MLS clubs to come down to the USL. David Carrieri, great lad, he's on a good contract. So all of a sudden now, I'm down to the last 8 of the trials. 5 of us get asked to stay and do pre-season with the actual first team squad. Yeah. And I remember Scotty saying, how long will it take you to get fit? And I went, a month. I said, a good month of this every day. I says, and I'll be back to me peak self. He said, because if I can get you fit, he said, you'll be the best player here. So I stayed. We're now down to 5 players who've been whittled down from that 8 to 5. So come the first game of the season, I'm not even on a contract. He said, Stu, there's no money left. He said, I'm bad timing me on a contract. He said, there's no money left, but I can give you a win bonus and an appearance money. He said, it won't be a lot. He said, but that's all that's available. So I had me coaching at Triangle United. So come the first game of the season, it's the inaugural, like it's a big thing. It's the first ever game of the franchise, the Carolina Railhawks. And we play in the Minnesota Vikings. And he names the squad, and I'm starting. And I look around, and Philip Kutsu and Shalar Abalaji are not even in the 16. So these lads are on the big contracts, $3,000 a month, and not even in the squad of 16. Yeah. So I play the game. I'm starting. I've got number 18 on with Brightwell on the back of me shirt, and there's 7,000 turn up for this inaugural game. So the stadium's packed, and I look across, and there's a big white banner behind the goal, and I've actually found the photo of it on Flickr. And the local supporters have made a big white banner. Who needs Beckham when we've got Stu? And it was huge. And I've got the photo. We'll have to show it. And I start, and I play the full game. And the next 3 or 4 games, I'm playing full games. And we play an Open Cup game. So the Open Cup's a bit like the FA Cup, where you can be drawn against anybody at any round, and even amateur teams enter. And I remember we playing it, and we drew a team at home, and they were an amateur team, but they were all professional 5-a-side players, because they have an indoor. When you leave the USL, because it's only a short. I think it goes from March to October. In October, everybody goes to professional indoor teams, and that's how you earn your money all year round. So we're playing against these lads who've been playing professional indoor, like 5-a-side. And the first 20 minutes, they're popping the ball around, and we're thinking, these are decent, like. Anyway, by the end of the 80 minutes, we'd won 5-0 because their fitness is completely different to ours. Theirs is like short stints where shorter areas. So win the game 5-0, and Scotty pulls us after the game. And he said, listen, he says, I've managed to get you a contract. He went, it's $1,500 a month. It's a 2-year contract. We're going to pay for your living digs. I was living with a Captain Capono Law. Remember Capono? Yeah, he did. Yeah. So I was living with Capono, and now they were going to pay Capono for me to live there, and they give us a car. I got a Ford Probe with the pop-up headlights, leather interior. It was lovely. Like, it was lovely. Apart from on a morning when the sun burst through the windows and the leather interior, you couldn't get in.
Yeah.
I had to put a towel down to drive the car. It was that hot. So I've signed this contract, and I'm established now as a regular first timer. But it's brilliant. You're traveling all over America. We played the Seattle Sounders in their actual NFL stadium, so it was huge, 80,000 seater stadium, and they had 1,000 supporters. So there was a tiny section of the whole 80,000 seater stadium. But the scary thing from that is the Seattle Sounders football team, now they're an MLS franchise, have got the record of attendance in the MLS, 89,000. So they went from being in the USL playing against us for 1,000 people there to now, because they're an MLS franchise, 89,000 people want to go and watch them now. Yeah. So that was like, we were traveling all over. It was amazing. And then the funny thing was, we were playing in the Open Cup, and the draw comes out, and David Beckham's playing for the LA Galaxy at the time, in the MLS. And the draw comes out, and the draw was, we were at home to Chicago Fire out the MLS. Yeah. And LA Galaxy are away to the Richmond Kickers. Now, the Richmond Kickers was just up the road from us in Richmond. It was about a 3-hour drive, but it was like one of the closest places you could be to us. But they're in the USL too, so they're a league below us. But the draw was, whoever won them games played each other in the semi-final, the quarter-final. That was the quarter-final. So everyone's looking, going, oh my word, we're going to be playing the LA Galaxy. They were playing the Richmond Kickers. We were like, if we beat the Chicago Fire, we're going to play the LA Galaxy here at SAS Soccer Park. Yeah. So we play Chicago Fire. We beat Chicago Fire 2-0, and they're in a league above them in the MLS. Richmond Kickers beat the LA Galaxy. No. So we like, no way. So we play the Richmond Kickers away in the next round, and we beat them 2-0. And we get to the semi-final of the Open Cup, which was amazing for a first-year franchise. And we lost Steve Nicol. Remember Steve Nicol? Mm. Steve Nicol was in charge of the Houston Dynamo. Oh. Yeah. So he was the manager of Houston Dynamo, and we went to a central venue to play them. They had a lad, I'll have to dig his name out, in midfield dreads. He actually went to Celtic for something like 7 million after that game. Right. And they beat us 2-0. They were much better than us on the day. And they went on to win it. They won the Open Cup. So that was me. That was the end of the season. So I had another year. Come back home. So I ended up coming back home, had Christmas back home, getting with your mates again. You get back out on the drink and stuff like that. And then it got to the point where I was obviously with Rachel at the time. I was like, well, do I really want to go back? Anyway, Scotty Schweitzer rang us, and fair play to him. He just said, listen, he said, I know you're on a 2-year contract. He said, but obviously the club are moving in the direction of, we're getting a bit more money. We're looking to sign bigger players, if you like. He said, but you were one of the ones that we would have to have a look at you in pre-season, whether or not we keep your contract or we just let you go. So I think over in America, it wasn't like where you have to pay us for that 2-year. Once your first year's gone, they don't have to commit to your second year if they don't want to. So he said, because you're thousands of miles away, he says, I'm just giving you the heads up that might happen, that you might come back over. You know, we see better players and we have to turn you down. Yeah. And I went, Scotty, do you know what? I says, I appreciate it, but I'm not going to come back. I says, I've getting back home with my family. I'm settled again. I said, I've loved it, but I ain't going to come back. Like, and I was 28 at the time, and that's when I got into the coaching. Yeah. So I stepped literally straight into the coaching from there, which was good. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, but it was you came over, didn't you? Came over for a week. You know, it was came to the ground and watched you play. Yeah, it was sensational. Probably something I should have done years ago. You know, I really look back in hindsight and went, as soon as I got released by Man U, I should have probably headed over there. Yeah. You know, and my dad always says, yeah, but you know, things happen for a reason. You wouldn't have Charlie and Ivy and Met Law and stuff like that. So, you know, but the career I had over there that year, I would have loved 10 years of that. Yeah. The place itself was amazing. It was a fantastic place.
There's a guy called Keith Fletcher who lived in East and worked at the pit, but he moved to America a long time ago. And he put me on Facebook, messaged me on Facebook saying, Sonny, this is quite, you know, unusual. But he says, I'm sat here watching your son on American TV.
All right, yeah.
Playing for
the Real Hawks.
Yeah.
It was
Sweet.
it was an amazing opportunity. And it's something again that experience I would never swap. You know, going over there and going to loads of different states. You know, I go back there now with my job with I2I, and it's just an amazing place. Like you'd visit Texas and New York, and all the different cities and states. It's just unbelievable. So I wouldn't swap that for the world.
No. And in between, you missed a bit there. In between, when you were playing the semi-pro period, there, you playing Sunday football as well, weren't you?
Yeah, so obviously Brad Groves, who's now the chairman of Spennymoor, he's done a fantastic job there. He always said he would. He dominated the Sunday, and the lads used to come in on a Sunday morning talking about the Vars wins and all that, and he used to say, lads, have your time now. He said, but when I step into Saturday football, I will dominate Saturday local football. And sure enough, he's took Spennymoor through all the leagues to where they are now, you know. But he was manager of Hetton Lions Cricket Club. And at the time he was high up at Blacks. So he used to, whenever he wanted you to sign, he would say, I'll get you some boots. The carrot for signing for Hetton Lions was you'll get free boots off Brad. And you got paid, which was very rare. And there wasn't many teams. Well, there was none on a Sunday. Yeah. So the Hetton Lions was like a Northern League select team. You know, he used to see lads playing and he would go, I want him to sign. So the Hetton Lions team we had at the time was like a Northern League select team. It was that good. And you got paid, you got 20 quid a win, which was never heard of in them days. But, people talk about, I was telling Charlie this the other day, people talk about county cup days. For local Sunday teams, like playing in the county cup's a big thing.
Yeah.
It'll be a doubt in the drink. And if you can progress in the competition, it's like unbelievable. And like, I've got a bag in the loft, and there's about 7 county cup winners' medals in there.
I know.
Charlie's like, "Are you joking?" And like, for anyone to just win a county cup, it's unbelievable. I've got 7 of them there, sat there, and it was like, because Hetton was so successful, it didn't really mean anything, But then the one year, which was the year we played 56 games that season. That included league, All England, County Cup, Stafiri Cup. We won 54 and drew 2. So the 2 draws were in the league. So that year we won the Stafiri Cup, the County Cup, the All England Cup, and the league, and we never lost a game. And the final, obviously, the All England final was at Anfield. We played St Joseph's from Luton, and it was a strange game. I took a knock. I got a blast to the eye in the first. I started the game and I got a blast in the eye. The ball hit us in the eye, and for the next 10 minutes, like I was struggling to see. And Brad tells a story. He said, to be honest, he says after the first 20 minutes, he says I was going to bring you off, but it was the bank of the eye. It took us a while to get round. Anyway, he left us on the pitch, and I ended up scoring a hat trick, and we won the game 5-2. I mean, I got man of the match, and I got Ian Rush give us. It was on Sky Sports actually, the presentation and stuff, and I had to go on the stage in the middle of Anfield that they'd created, and I got the match ball presented. It was off Ian Rush. Which was again like looking back at it as achievements wise, that was to score a hat trick at Anfield. There's not many people can sit today and say that unless you've been made it at the very, very top. That's actually scored a hat trick at Anfield.
It is a big thing, and that, like you say, unless you're at the very, very top, those things there are magnificent achievements for the people 100%. Who aren't at the top. Myself included, never won anything like that. County Cup finals or whatever, but never won the County Cup. Never obviously anywhere near that, playing in a game like that at Anfield. So they are great achievements. They don't have to be professional, winning the actual FA Cup and all that to be fantastic achievements. So brilliant achievements.
Now, I remember that coincided with we just won the All England, and then the America thing came. So I said to Brad, listen, I'm leaving. I'm gonna go to America. And I remember our last league game, and we went back to the club, and everyone knew that I was going over to America. And he just did a little presentation, and he just said, listen, on behalf of everyone at Lions, I just want to thank you for your contribution for the last 8 years. Just a little something from me. And he gives a brown envelope with 500 quid in.
Did he?
And he said, that's just to help you on your way.
Very nice. You never told me about that one.
Yeah.
So,
I'll have 40 quid back.
But that was him all over. He was, we used to have nights out, and everyone would get the money that they were owed. So if it was like a month, some lads waited till the end of the season and got like, you know, 400-500 quid to go to Blackpool. I was one of them that whenever there was a night out and it was like, well, it was the county cup and it was the end of the month and we were going out, he would give you a packet. But even though he'd give you a packet, it might have 120 quid in, he would still pay for everybody's taxi home. You know, I'll be like, Brad, I'm going, right, come here, how much do you want for your taxi? Boom. Yeah. You know, he was amazing like that, like, and you know, them times were unbelievable times at Hetton.
Yeah.
And I still speak to them. We've got a WhatsApp group still going, Hetton's Lions lads, and the crack's still brilliant. Don't see them as much because obviously everyone's got their own families and stuff now, but obviously with Gary Pearson, you know, passing away a couple of years ago, that was hard for all of us to take.
Yeah,
you know,
hard, yeah.
He was a massive part of that. You know, he played in the final, he scored in the final. He was probably there before me. He was a local lad.
He's a Hetton lad, yeah.
Yeah, he knew them all. He's at Lane, but obviously they're closely connected. The funeral was difficult. It was great to catch up with all the lads, but in terrible circumstances, you know.
And that lad played, Gary played for Sheff, was it Sheff?
He was at Lilleshall.
He's at Lilleshall.
Yeah, he was 2 years above me.
Right.
So I was looking online for some photos the other day from Lilleshall. There's none of my age group, but there's loads of the year below, and there's loads of Gary Pearson's age. And he
went to Sheffield United, didn't he?
Yeah, went to Sheffield United, yeah, and then came out, and then was like in and out. He went back into Darlington professionally, then back, came to Durham, you know, in and out really, but a very good player.
Yeah.
One of the hardest tacklers I've ever seen on a football pitch. Like, just like you needed him in your team. You know, no one was ever going to bully you when him and Reggie were there. You know, they were both brothers, both hard as nails, middle of the park. No teams would try and bully you.
That's right.
So we had good players mixed in with lads who would look after you as well. You know, and they could both play footy as well, but they were both tough. But that was, we still to this day, it's like, it's hard to believe. Like, he was one of them players that I looked up to. Was like, he was such a strong individual, like character, but physically as well, he was an animal. Like, and to think that, like, that he just went like that with his heart. He had a heart defect. Just for somebody like that, who we all used to look up to, was like, you know, he was our leader. Yeah. Just to be took like that, it was tough for us to take. Like,
but nice guy,
excellent. No, I mean that's a great sort of potted history of your career there, Stuart. So let's finish up and let's go back to sort of the pit and the origins of the pit mentality. Is that something you think you can put words to? You know, what is pit yak, or what is pit mentality?
Well, not having worked at the pit, but being part of it as the community. It was, what's the old saying? One for all and all for one. Or,
right, okay.
You know, I think in the miners' strike proved that, I think. You know, the camaraderie. You know, they were fighting for their jobs, the camaraderie. And the strike epitomised the strength of feeling in the community. But not only that, the strength of togetherness, where they worked in the soup kitchens. So that the ladies got up and done all these food kitchen stuff for people to go on, because people weren't being paid. Even people who weren't working at the pit rallied round and done what they could financially and everything like that. So that it's just something that I don't think will ever come back.
No, it's definitely, there's been a death of that whole sort of spirit, hasn't there?
You can see that in the collieries now.
Yeah, for sure.
There's no community now, is there?
No.
Whereas, you know, I remember Dawn when I first met Dawn and she came up to Easington and we're walking down Seaside Lane, and it took us about 2 hours to get from where we lived down at the colliery, because once we were walking down, oh, hello there, Sonny, all right, and then you just speak to them and speak to someone else and someone else. Do you know what I mean? And that was the way it was, not just with me. That was the way it was with everybody. You know, and that's gone. So I think that the pit, when the pit was open, the camaraderie, not just with the miners, but the miners' families. As I say, I never worked the pit, but I was part of it. Yeah. You know what I mean? I grew up there and socialised, played football with them all, everything. You know, so that them days are gone, but sadly.
Definitely, sadly, yeah, I agree. Well, thanks very much.
Very welcome.
It's been a great chat.
Enjoyed it.
I definitely enjoyed it.
So,
enjoyed it.
Yeah. And maybe we'll speak again.
Oh, hope so.
Maybe we'll get you back on and.
So if I get an invite.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what it plays back like before we get you back on.
Cheers. Thank you.